You're not broke. You're trapped in a pattern. Every month feels the same. Money comes in. Stress goes up. You promise you'll do better. Then something happens. Swipe. Minimum payment. Regret. Sound familiar? This isn't about math. It's not about some secret investment hack. It's about behavior, identity, the quiet habits that are stealing your future without making a sound. In this video, we're breaking down the Total Money Makeover, not as a feel-good finance talk, but as a psychological war plan. You'll learn why debt controls your decisions, how small financial wins rewire your brain, why emergency funds create power, how investing builds long-term dominance, and why real wealth requires discipline, not motivation. We'll walk through the 7-step structure that turns chaos into control. Step by step. No fluff, no fantasy, just strategy. If you're tired of feeling behind, if you're done negotiating with bills, if you want freedom, not just income, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand money differently. You'll see yourself differently. The book was written by Dave Ramsey, a personal finance expert and radio host in the United States. He built wealth in his 20s through real estate, then lost it all in his early 30s when banks called his loans. He went bankrupt. That collapse became the furnace that shaped his philosophy. He wrote the Total Money Makeover to teach a simple, behavior-first system for getting out of debt and building wealth. Not theory, not complex investing, discipline, structure, psychological reset. The book is built around what he calls the 7 baby steps. A step-by-step plan to eliminate debt, build emergency savings, invest for retirement, and create long-term financial stability. His core claim is direct. Personal finance is 80% behavior, 20% knowledge. You do not fail because you do not understand compound interest. You fail because you lack emotional control. Now let's enter the story beneath the strategy. Chapter 1. You are not broke. You are undisciplined. Let me ask you something. When you look at your bank account at night, do you feel tension in your chest? Do you swipe your card and pretend not to calculate the future cost? Do you tell yourself you deserve it? This is not about math. It is about impulse. Dave Ramsey opens with a confrontation. He does not comfort you. He says your life will change when you change, not when the economy changes. You think you need more income, but what if what you need is order? Behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman discovered that humans suffer from loss aversion. We feel losses stronger than gains. That is why debt feels heavy. Yet we still create more of it. We chase relief in the moment. We escape discomfort with spending. This might sound harsh, but comfort is expensive. Ramsey's first message is not financial. It is moral. You cannot borrow your way into peace. You cannot finance self-respect. Marcus Aurelius said you have power over your mind, not outside events. Ramsey applies that to money. He does not blame banks, though they are ruthless. He blames your tolerance for disorder. And here is the twist. Debt is not just numbers. It is a quiet master. Debt steals future choices. Debt compresses your courage. Debt makes you negotiate with your own potential. You say, I'll start next month. But next month is built on today's weakness. The first makeover is not your bank account. It is your identity. You stop saying, I'm bad with money. You start saying, I was careless. Now I'm precise. Ramsey begins with radical ownership. No excuses, no drama, no victim story. You are not cursed. You are untrained. And training begins with pain. Not loud pain, disciplined pain. Cutting lifestyle, selling things, saying no, even when your ego resists. This is not about becoming rich. It is about becoming stable. And stability is power. Ask yourself, are you tired enough to change? Because until you are, you will keep paying for your impulses with your freedom. Chapter 2. You keep calling it normal. It's financial self-sabotage. Let me ask you something honest. When did debt become normal to you? Was it when everyone around you had car payments? When credit cards felt like adult tools? When minimum payment due sounded harmless? Ramsey's next strike is brutal in its simplicity. Stop borrowing. Not slowly, not strategically. Stop. He attacks what society calls normal. Car loans, credit cards, financing furniture, student loans without a plan. He says normal is broke. This might look extreme, even reckless to critics. But here is the psychological layer. Leon Festinger discovered cognitive dissonance in 1957. When your actions and beliefs conflict, your mind adjusts the belief to reduce discomfort. So you say, everyone has debt. That eases the tension. You normalize bondage. But normal does not mean healthy. Ramsey introduces the debt snowball. You list debts smallest to largest. Pay minimums on all. Attack the smallest with intensity. When it dies, roll that payment into the next. Mathematically, it is not the most efficient. Psychologically, it is lethal. Small wins build momentum. Teresa Amabile in 2011 found that progress, even tiny progress, fuels motivation more than distant goals. Ramsey understands this. You are not a spreadsheet. You are emotion with a calculator. Nietzsche wrote about the will to power, the deep drive to overcome resistance. The snowball feeds that drive. You kill one debt, you taste victory. That taste changes posture. But let me be direct. Minimum payments are designed to keep you docile. Interest is silent erosion. Debt companies profit from your patience. This is for educational purposes only, but understand the battlefield. Sun Tzu said, know your enemy. Interest compounds against you when you hesitate. You might say, but my rate is low. Low poison is still poison. Ramsey's tone is firm because passivity is expensive. You cannot invest confidently while chained. You cannot think long-term while negotiating bills every month. The snowball is not about numbers. It is about identity shift. You stop being a borrower. You become a finisher. And once you experience finishing, you will never crave minimum payments again. So tell me, are you ready to be abnormal? Because abnormal, in a culture of debt, is freedom. Chapter 3. You think you need a raise, you need a war plan. Let me ask you straight. If I doubled your income tomorrow, would your chaos disappear? Or would your lifestyle quietly expand to swallow it? Be honest. Ramsey's third movement is simple. Build a $1,000 emergency fund before you attack debt with full force. Not 10,000. Not a year of expenses. Just 1,000. Sounds small, almost naive. But it is psychological armor. Most people quit the debt journey not because they lack desire, but because life interrupts. Tire blows, pipe bursts, a child gets sick. Without a buffer, you reach for the credit card, and the cycle resets. This is not about wealth yet. It is about resilience. Roy Baumeister discovered in 1998 that willpower drains under stress. When pressure rises, discipline falls. The emergency fund reduces stress, which protects willpower. Ramsey may not speak in academic language, but he understands human fragility. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. This small fund is your first system. Seneca warned that misfortune tests the soul before it strikes. Preparation is calm strength, not fear, not paranoia, strategy. But here's the darker truth. Most people avoid saving because it feels slow. Saving forces you to confront your spending addiction. It removes the illusion that money is infinite, and illusions are comforting. An emergency fund is not about the money itself. It is a declaration. I will not panic. Ramsey calls it baby step 1. I call it mental stabilization. When the next problem arrives, and it will, you won't negotiate with desperation. You will pay, breathe, and continue the mission. That changes posture. That builds quiet confidence. This is for educational purposes only, but understand something critical. Wealth begins when urgency ends. When you stop reacting, you start directing. You thought you needed more income. What you needed was a shield. Tell me, how many times have you restarted your progress because you had no cushion? Exactly. You don't need luck. You need preparation. And preparation, even in small form, Is power held in reserve? Chapter 4. You don't have a money problem. You have an identity problem. Let me ask you something deeper. Who are you when nobody is watching your spending? Are you disciplined? Or are you performing? Do you buy to live? Or do you buy to be seen? Ramsey now pushes you into uncomfortable territory. He talks about lifestyle cuts, selling things, downsizing cars, pausing comfort, living below your means with intensity. Not forever, but long enough to break ego. Here's the truth most won't say. Your spending is often a social signal. You are buying status, not utility. You are financing validation. Thorstein Veblen in 1899 described conspicuous consumption. People spend to display wealth rather than build it. Nothing has changed. Social media only amplified it. You say you deserve the upgrade, but what you often deserve is discipline. This is not about deprivation. It is about detachment. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you separate your worth from external possessions. Ramsey applies this in modern terms. Live like no one else now, so later you can live like no one else. That line sounds motivational, but it is surgical, because the battle here is identity. If you see yourself as a high-status spender, you will sabotage every plan. If you see yourself as a builder, sacrifice becomes strategic. And yes, this might sound extreme. Selling a car you love, canceling subscriptions, saying no to trips. It bruises the ego. But Machiavelli warned that appearances can be crafted. Foundations cannot. A weak financial base eventually exposes you. Debt dressed in luxury is still debt. A financed image is a fragile mask. This is for educational purposes only. But ask yourself, who benefits when you chase image? Not you. Ramsey forces you into temporary discomfort so you can detach from approval. When you stop spending to impress, something strange happens. Silence grows, clarity grows, power grows, because now your money serves you, not your insecurity. So let me ask again, if no one could see your life, how would you actually live? That answer. Chapter 5. You want freedom, but you're afraid of boredom. Let me ask you something raw. Why do you panic when life gets simple? Why does stability feel dull? Why do you create financial drama just to feel alive? Here Ramsey shifts the focus. After the small emergency fund, after the debt snowball gains speed, he tells you to increase intensity. Cut deeper, work extra, sell more, attack the debt like it insulted your family. This is where most people quit, because intensity requires monotony. You wake up, work, pay debt, repeat, no flashy wins. No applause, just grind. And your brain hates that. In 1971, psychologist Walter Mischel showed in the Stanford marshmallow experiment that delayed gratification predicts long-term success. The children who waited had better life outcomes years later. The lesson wasn't about candy. It was about resisting impulse for future gain. Ramsey demands that same resistance. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Chaos can feel addictive. Overspending creates short-term excitement. Debt keeps your nervous system stimulated. Calm discipline feels boring because it removes drama. Yet boredom is not emptiness. It is stability without noise. Zeno, founder of Stoicism, taught that virtue is consistency aligned with reason. Not intensity for show. Not emotional spikes. Just steady alignment. The debt payoff phase is not cinematic. It is repetitive. And repetition builds character. Sun Tzu said every battle is won before it is fought. That preparation phase is not glamorous. It is quiet sharpening. This is for educational purposes only, but understand something vital. If you cannot tolerate boredom, you will sabotage progress. Ramsey pushes you into focused discomfort so you build endurance. You learn to say no without explaining yourself. You learn to work without broadcasting it. You become dangerous in silence. And when the final debt falls, the victory is not loud. It is calm, because you didn't just eliminate balances. You conquered impulse. So tell me, are you chasing excitement, or are you building freedom? Because freedom is quiet, and quiet people win long games. The video is half finished. If you like the video, be sure to comment and watch the next steps. Chapter 6. You escaped debt. Now don't rebuild the cage. Let me ask you something that stings. If all your debt disappeared today, would your habits disappear with it? Or would you slowly walk back into the same trap? Just cleaner this time? This is where Ramsey shifts the mission. After the storm of debt payoff, he tells you to build a fully funded emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses. Not symbolic savings. Real stability. Because debt freedom without reserves is fragile. Nassim Taleb said strength is not measured by how you perform in calm seas, but how you survive volatility. Ramsey builds anti-fragility in simple language. Cash reserves are not laziness. They are strategic patience. Here's the psychological layer. In 2010, researchers like Sendhil Mullainathan found that scarcity narrows cognitive bandwidth. When money is tight, your thinking shrinks. You make short-term decisions because your mind is busy surviving. An emergency fund expands your mental horizon. You don't panic. You choose. But listen carefully. Lifestyle inflation is waiting for you. Comfort will whisper, "You earned this." Your ego will try to upgrade faster than your discipline can handle. This is the quiet danger phase. You paid off debt. You feel powerful. You want reward. That reward can become regression. Marcus Aurelius warned that victory can corrupt as easily as defeat. The disciplined man remains measured in both. Ramsey's third baby step is not about fear. It's about control. 3 to 6 months of expenses means job loss doesn't own you. A crisis doesn't command you. You negotiate from strength. This is for educational purposes only. But understand, security changes personality. When you are not desperate, you are harder to manipulate. And manipulation is everywhere. Employers, advertisers, lenders. When you hold reserves, you hold options. And options are leverage. So let me ask you, are you building freedom or just celebrating survival? Because survival is phase 1. Power is phase 2. Chapter 7. You say you care about the future, but you don't invest like it. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Do you really believe in your future? Or are you secretly convinced it won't matter? Because the way you invest answers that question. Ramsey now moves to long-term wealth. Invest 15% of your income into retirement. Consistently, calmly, no gambling, no panic. Just disciplined growth through mutual funds. Steady exposure to the market. This is where patience becomes philosophy. Compound interest is not magic. It is time rewarded. Albert Einstein reportedly admired it as a powerful force. Not because it is flashy, but because it is relentless. Small amounts, repeated over decades, become transformation. But here is the psychological barrier. Humans discount the future. Behavioral economist George Ainsley showed that we prefer smaller immediate rewards over larger delayed ones. Your brain undervalues future you. So when you skip investing, you are quietly betraying someone. That someone is you 10 years from now. And this betrayal is subtle. You tell yourself you'll start later. You prioritize upgrades over ownership. You confuse speculation with investing. Ramsey's strategy is simple for a reason. Complexity invites ego. Ego invites risk. Seneca warned that wealth gained recklessly disappears just as fast. Steady accumulation demands humility. This is not about chasing trends, not about day trading, not about proving intelligence. It is about building inevitability. Sun Tzu said victory comes from positioning, not aggression. Investing consistently positions you. You stop relying on hustle alone. And here's the deeper layer. When you invest, you declare that your life extends beyond today's mood. You anchor your identity in continuity, not impulse. This is for educational purposes only, but understand, wealth is built in silence. No one applauds monthly contributions. No one celebrates restraint. Yet decades later, discipline compounds into dignity. So tell me, If your future self walked into this room right now, would they thank you, or would they ask why you hesitated? Because every month you delay, time keeps moving, and time never negotiates. Chapter 8. You protect your phone, but not your bloodline. Let me ask you something that cuts deeper than numbers. If you were gone tomorrow, what would your family inherit? Peace or pressure? Ramsey now moves into protection. Not growth, not ambition, protection. Term life insurance, basic coverage, a written will, clear beneficiaries, no confusion. Sounds morbid. It is not. It is responsibility. Most people avoid this step because it forces confrontation with mortality. Ernest Becker wrote in 1973 that humans deny death to protect the ego. So you delay paperwork. You postpone decisions. You tell yourself you are young. But denial does not cancel reality. Dying without a plan transfers chaos to people you love. No insurance means grief mixed with financial stress. No will invites conflict where unity should exist. This is not dramatic. It is mechanical. Ramsey insists on term life, not whole life as an investment. Keep investing separate. Keep insurance simple. Protection is not a wealth strategy. It is a risk strategy. Sun Tzu said, secure your position before expanding territory. This is securing your position. And there is something else here. Something quiet. When you create a will, when you assign beneficiaries, when you outline guardianship, you are declaring stewardship. You admit that your resources are not just for consumption. They are for continuity. In 2011, psychologist Hal Hershfield found that people who feel connected to their future selves make wiser financial decisions. Estate planning forces that connection. It stretches your identity beyond your lifespan. This is for educational purposes only. But understand, avoidance is expensive. Preparation is not pessimism. It is discipline extended into uncertainty. You insure your car because accidents happen. Yet you hesitate to ensure your family's stability. Why? Because thinking about death is uncomfortable. But Stoic thought teaches this. Reflection on mortality sharpens purpose. It does not weaken it. So answer me honestly. If something happened tonight, would your house be orderly or fractured? Protection is not fear. It is love, expressed through structure. Chapter 9. You say you want to give, but you're still clutching. Let me ask you something that feels almost spiritual. Why does generosity scare you? Why does giving feel like loss instead of strength? Why do you wait until you feel rich enough? Ramsey ends his system with something unexpected. Give. Not when you are perfect. Not when you are ultra-wealthy. Give as a habit. At first glance, this looks soft, emotional, optional. It is not. It is psychological mastery. In 2008, Elizabeth Dunn discovered that people who spend money on others report higher happiness than those who spend it on themselves. Generosity expands well-being. But Ramsey's logic goes beyond happiness. Giving breaks greed. Money easily becomes identity. Net worth quietly becomes self-worth. You start measuring humans through transactions. That is corrosion of the soul. When you give strategically, intentionally, you remind yourself that you own money. It does not own you. Seneca argued that wealth is the slave of the wise and the master of the fool. Generosity tests which one you are. But this is not reckless charity. It is disciplined generosity. You give from strength, not from guilt. You give after structure, not instead of structure. There is another layer most ignore. When you give, you detach from fear. Scarcity loses its grip. You prove to yourself that there is enough. And abundance, when grounded in discipline, creates calm authority. This is for educational purposes only, but understand, hoarding does not create security. It creates anxiety. The more you clutch, the more fragile you feel. Ramsey's final step is not financial. It is philosophical. You began this journey trying to escape debt. You end it learning to release attachment. That is evolution. So ask yourself, if money stopped being your shield, Who would you become? Because the final makeover is not about wealth accumulation. It is about becoming the kind of person who can hold wealth without being held by it. Chapter 10. You wanted money. What you needed was mastery. Let me ask you one last question. After all this, was it ever really about money? Or were you searching for control in a world that feels unstable? You started this journey trying to fix numbers. You ended up restructuring your behavior, your impulses, your identity. That is the real makeover. Dave Ramsey built a system around simple steps: debt freedom, emergency reserves, investing, protection, generosity, straight lines, clear order, no complexity theater. But underneath the steps was something deeper: self-governance. In 1990, psychologist Roy Baumeister found that self-regulation predicts life outcomes across domains: health, career, relationships. Money just exposes whether you have it. Ramsey's plan works because it forces alignment between intention and action. No hiding, no sophisticated excuses. And here is the final truth most avoid. Financial chaos is rarely accidental. It is tolerated. It is negotiated with. You tolerated minimum payments. You negotiated with impulse. You excused delay. Now you don't. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. Debt was the impediment. Discipline became the advancement. This entire process trained something in you: patience, restraint, strategic thinking, long-term vision. Sun Tzu would call it positioning. Nietzsche would call it self-overcoming. Stoicism would call it living in accordance with reason. Call it what you want, but you are not the same person who started. This is for educational purposes only. Understand something sharp: wealth without character collapses. Discipline without purpose hardens into arrogance. The balance is mastery with humility. You wanted more money. What you built was internal order, and internal order is rare. Now the real question: will you keep the structure when no one is watching? Because the system gave you stability, but only you can sustain it. This was never just a financial plan. It was a mirror, and you either walked away unchanged or you rebuilt yourself. Thank you very much for watching my video, and please like and subscribe to my channel.